Hello, this is VTV News at 6 p.m. local time. My name is Lena Fatman. Here's what we have for the headlines at this hour. The Vietnamese Ministry of Industry and Trade has just announced conditions for exporting mangoes to Australia. And June 12th is Russian Independence Day, and in the spirit of the ASEAN-Russia Year, the Russian Embassy in Vietnam held several cultural events to celebrate. Top news at the hour. On Thursday, Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc chaired a meeting to check the preparations for the 25th Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC Summit, which will take place in Da Nang on October 2017. Da Nang will receive 400 billion Vietnam dong, equivalent to nearly $19 million from the central budget, in order to help the city implement some key infrastructure projects in preparation for the APEC Summit. These projects include upgrades to major streets and the Tiên Sơn Sports Arena, and the development of the existing International Exhibition Fair Center into an international media center. He also urged city authorities to take initiative with their local budget and appeal for public donations in order to put these projects into place effectively. Recent policies are now showing their effects on businesses, notably the amended Circular Number 36, which attempts to curb the risk of a real estate bubble, and Circulars Number 6 and 7, which allows banks to borrow in foreign currencies. More to follow.
Circular Number 6 tightens the credit risk ratio for real estate activities. This circular is considered support for domestic banks, as many are currently restructuring and resolving bad debts.
With many circulars issued in the past, many banks failed to meet the new requirements. Therefore, Circular Number 6 will have a good impact on banks, because it allows them more time to adjust their credit systems.
Circular Number 7 allows enterprises to borrow in foreign currency with an interest rate at 15% of financial costs.
Thanks to Circular Number 7, we can borrow in US dollar with interest rates lower than if we borrow in Vietnamese dong. It helps us reduce production costs and increase our competitiveness.
However, these two circulars are open for adjustment, as the State Bank of Vietnam is still measuring the impact on the market. The State Bank is also raising the ratio of government bond purchases from 15% to 25%, which will help stabilize the financial system.
The newly issued circulars are meant to help with monetary policy, especially the focus on purchasing government bonds. It shows that the State Bank of Vietnam is channeling the flow of money in the government bond sector, not the private sector.
If the State Bank of Vietnam doesn't focus on buying government bonds, more money could be available to the private sector for lending. In that case, the interest rate for borrowing will decrease, and enterprises will find loans more accessible.
The Vietnamese Ministry of Industry and Trade has just announced conditions for exporting mangoes to Australia. The original phytosanitary certificate must be attached to each shipment. Furthermore, shipments must not contain any plagues or be infested with bugs, and should not be mixed with contaminants such as leaves, twigs, soil, seeds, debris, or any other plants. Lastly, shipments must be safely packed before irradiation. After the recent shipwreck on the Han River resulted in 3 dead, Da Nang City has stopped licensing former fishing vessels for passenger transport. Authorities will check the safety of the 27 vessels which have already been licensed. Some 20 of these were originally fishing and freight vessels.
Exotic Vietnam is an intriguing blend of many charms. This land is where all manner of stunning landscapes await like a visual feast, rivaled only by the beauty of its people and their abundantly rich tradition and culture. Here is where you can relive the past in richest color or live it up in the bright lights of the big city. With so much more to offer, Vietnam is simply unforgettable.
Welcome back to VTV News. Free heart surgery will soon be available for select patients in Ho Chi Minh City. Thai cardiologists recently arrived in Ho Chi Minh City to screen patients with heart disease on the 40th anniversary of Vietnam and Thailand's diplomatic ties.
If chosen, patients suffering from heart disease will be offered free surgery as part of the Love Light Journey program in July. Children will be prioritized for the program.
We believe that a project like this, there's nothing better than giving life back to a friend in the world.
In Vietnam, heart disease takes the lives of some 200,000 people, accounting for 1/4 of deaths. Love Light Journeys is just one way that Vietnam and Thailand are celebrating 40 years of diplomatic relations.
Vietnam has become the 4th largest recipient of Japanese visas, behind China and the Philippines and Indonesia. According to the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, almost 140,000 Japanese visas were granted to Vietnamese nationals last year, roughly 3% of the total visas that Japan issued to foreigners. The Japanese diplomatic missions, including the embassy in Hanoi and consulate general in Ho Chi Minh City, are among the top 10 diplomatic Japanese agencies that granted the largest number of visas in 2015. Thừa Thiên Huế Province People's Committee, with cooperation with Vietnam's National Commission for UNESCO, held a ceremony to honor poems carved on Hué's royal architecture on Saturday morning as part of memory of the World's Asia-Pacific program. The cultural heritage won recognition by UNESCO in May. The exquisitely carved works praised the nation and Vietnamese people. This is Hué's 3rd UNESCO World Heritage. Vietnam and Russia are continuing to improve cultural cooperation. June the 12th is Russian Independence Day, and in the spirit of the ASEAN-Russia year, the Russian embassy in Vietnam held several cultural events to celebrate.
The Sea of Orcas, the Green River, and Seligue Lake. An exhibition on Russia's natural landscapes introduced Vietnamese people to beautiful places like this.
Looking at these pictures really makes my friends and I want to go back and visit the places that we loved when we studied in Russia. I believe cultural exchange programs like this will help enhance the friendship between the two countries.
This is the first time the musicians of St. Petersburg Music House have performed in Vietnam.
We are so happy that we had the chance to perform in Vietnam. We are fascinated by Vietnamese culture.
I'm interested in Asian culture as well as Vietnamese culture. Vietnam is a beautiful country. I really want to come back to Vietnam.
Other activities in the same vein include the Vietnamese Cultural Days in Moscow from June the 4th to the 12th, Russian Language Week, and an exhibition in Vietnam entitled Le Lam Draws Russia by artist Le Lam.
We are deeply impressed by Le Lam's work as it reflects the Vietnamese people's love for Russia. We also plan to hold an exhibition of Vietnamese artists in Moscow and St. Petersburg, so Russian youth can feel this love too.
This series of cultural events strengthens bilateral ties and fosters mutual understanding between the two nations.
When it comes to the Spratly archipelago, people often think about the harsh sunshine and wind and the local residents living in poor conditions. But now a new source of clean energy has changed people's lives here. Let's find out more in the following.
Each week, Hưng has only 2 fish and chips. Previously, he stored food using generators powered by diesel. The power was limited, and food could only be stored for a few days. But since 2008, electricity from wind power and solar cells has helped Hung save food for up to a month in his freezer.
On the rainy days, when we can't go to the sea, it's necessary to have backup electricity.
In Spratly Archipelago, electricity is 70% wind and 30% solar. Thanks to the new source of electricity, the living standard has improved, narrowing the socio-economic gap between the Spratly Archipelago and the mainland. Still, there are issues. Transporting the devices in harsh weather is difficult, and sometimes residents must rely on energy reserves.
When it's cloudy and rainy with no wind, there is no source of electricity. On the other hand, when we try to reserve, it's quite limited.
Operating electrical systems on the smaller islands and the DK1 rig can be a challenge. Seawater and soil spray easily damage the devices. During a working visit to Trường Sa Island district, the Electric City of Vietnam, or EVN, stated it could provide stable sources of electricity, aiming to develop the economy and ensure security and defense at sea.
We are trying to put a strategic and cooperative program in place in order to upgrade and repair the electrical system on the islands, not only the large ones, but at every point in the Spratly Archipelago.
The EVN will directly manage and operate the electrical system in 10 of the 12 island districts nationwide. Power supply to the islands is very expensive, so apart from the nation budgets, contributions from businesses and people on the mainland are essential.
Now let's take a look at the weather updates. And that's all we have for this edition of VTV News. Thank you very much for being with us. Feel free to log on to vtv4.vn or youtube.com/vtv4go for other updates. I'm Lina Pham from VTV International. For now, goodbye from Hanoi.